Good morning, afternoon, and evening, wherever you are, and welcome to another Quips and Thwips. We've been doing a lot of these lately. I am joined by two new people. No, Gary's joined us for Quips and Thwips at one point. Um, but we are here to talk about the aftermath of No Way Home. All of us have had a chance to see it, and now we're going to talk about it. We do have a non-spoiler and spoiler review on our channel by Ginger Greek. He was going to join us here today, but scheduling conflicts. But I am very happy to be joined by the illustrious Santa Claus. Santa Claus, how are you doing?
Hi. Merry Christmas, my friends. And I'm so happy to be on Glitz and Tits today. I have always wanted to be on this show, but because of scheduling conflicts and the time as well, I never got the opportunity. So I'm very honored to be in the presence of greatness.
Yeah, what
Thank
what
you very
time
much.
what time is that normally at the North Pole? I don't.
Well, it's
Are you?
only like it's about 4 hours difference,
Oh,
but
okay.
still it's still significant, like for you it's like maybe 11, 12, but for me it's like 3, 4 in the morning, and this old man needs to get his beauty sleep. You know what I'm saying?
Ah, and joined once again by the man that is named what every woman says after they sleep with me, right down below. Holy crap, that was awesome.
Mm.
How you doing there, Gary?
Really good. I saw it today, so I'm all beside can tell from what happened.
Cool. Also, I'm just going to put out there that me and Vance of No Budget Productions will also be doing a review. He's not able to see the movie until later today. Uh, and it'll be in the middle of the night for these two guys over here. So we decided to do the nerd tube one, and then I'll do the no budget one with Vance later on tonight. So Vance will be on that program. But with all that being said, let's dive into it. This is a spoiler review, spoiler talk. Everything happens is free game in five, four, three, two, one. I cannot believe that Thanos came back and snapped everybody again. What were they thinking?
Oh yes, oh yes, that's such a twist. I loved it.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I
Yes.
can, sir.
It said my mic was muted all of a sudden. I'm like, why? Okay. So so no, okay, so there's a ton to go over in this movie. I don't really want to like do the scene by scene breakdown or everything like that. Let's just talk about the WTF moments first, and then we can kind of break it all down. So let's start with the big one. Aunt May dying. Holy shit, they did it. I didn't think they would. I thought honestly they would do Happy, but I didn't think they would actually pull the trigger on Aunt May, and they did. What do you guys think? Gary, we'll start with you. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, it was very shocking. I mean, the thing is that we've not seen Tom Holland's Peter have to deal with loss. We've seen Tommy Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man have to go through loss, but Uncle Ben didn't really die on camera. It was like implied that he died, before Homecoming came out. So, I mean, before Civil War even.
Mm.
So it was really good to see him. To see that. I mean, that we got to see more. I mean, again, like I'm going to say what I think about this film until the end. But as I said, because I think, I mean, I mean, do you want me to say now what I think? Because I mean, because I have a lot of good. Because again, this is probably top in my top slots of best films of the year, and I'm going to go into why so far. But I thought that was great. I mean, the thing is that we got a lot more teasing of a lot of other things. I mean, which we'll go into later, I suppose. But yeah, I thought it was great, and it's great that they pulled the trigger on it because considering that Aunt May is played by a name actress, namely Marissa Tomei. And they killed a lot of. I didn't think that they'd do it, but they did it, and like it's really sad because I mean I thought she was going to get done. When Willem Dafoe threw the goblin grenade. I thought when that went off, that killed her. But no, it was when the glider got her. I was like, oh, I thought it just maybe just glanced at, but no, it actually really hurt her. So he was just like, it's one of those things. It was like a slow death scene. It was really emotional, to be honest. It was the best acting I've seen Tom Holland do this entire film.
Xanta, does Tom Holland get the sack of goodness from you for his?
Oh yes, very, very much so. But I just want to say that if you say with great power there'll be great responsibility, then you have to expect to die
Yeah,
not long afterwards, because that's what happens when you say that phrase. May basically became Uncle Ben for this saga, and I will say this as well is after watching reviews from several high ranked streamers on YouTube, a lot of people were basically saying that this trilogy was basically the origin story for Peter Parker, and I can see that now to a degree because by the end of all of this, there's a hard reset. He's making his own sword. Nobody knows him. All of that. So I see where they're going with that. Yeah, it was I did see that twist coming, by the way. In today's age, it's really difficult to get away from spoilers or people's theories. I can understand where Ginger Greek is coming from now. He doesn't want people's theories, but it does lead to spoilers. And a lot of people were theorizing that May was going to kick the bucket in this movie. So I wasn't surprised when she did die. We have this person speaking right now.
yeah. I was just looking it up. It's
David. This is Dave.
Dave
Yes, he's
Gotez. Did you watch Professor Marsden and the Wonder Woman?
I
don't
have
know.
seen it.
Okay,
I
well,
don't know.
great. We're talking about Spider-Man: No Way Home, but okay. Okay, so yeah, I think overall with this movie, I think it takes a huge step in the right direction to get away from the thing that has frustrated me about the Holland movies is having not Tobey Maguire. We'll get into him in a little bit. Having Tom Holland step out of everyone else's shadow, because let's be real, Homecoming and No Way Home were all about Tony Stark, his leftover villains, and I've said this many times before, so you know what I'm talking about. But like, I really feel like that this movie essentially, and honestly, I felt like they went to the extreme, but I kind of feel like they had to go to the extreme because of everything that's happened. Like, did I want like all the Avengers to forget who Spider-Man is? No. Did I want MJ and Ned to forget? No. But at the same time, it's like you can't. It would have ended too perfectly if that was like, if the spell was like, okay, Ned, MJ, obviously it didn't matter from Aunt May. But in the Avengers, it just would have ended too perfectly with that. My other question is, in regarding to the end of everybody forgetting, is does that go across the whole universe or just this world? Because it sent all the people back to their original dimensions. Is that because only people who know Peter is Spider-Man were there? So then does everybody across the multiverse forget that Spider-Man is Peter Parker?
Well, I think various different Spider-Men have been outed to their villains in other universes. So all the people who are coming through the multiverse or people who in other universes knew who Peter Parker was. But I just also want to add that people, you said that in the past the villains that Spider-Man fought weren't necessarily his villains; they were associated with Tony Stark. But you know what? These villains weren't his either. They were
Oh, and
associated with Tobey Maguire. They were associated with Andrew Garfield.
mhm.
They weren't his, villains.
I agree, and I've
You
and I
know,
and I s-
and he was in the shadow once again of another Avenger, and that was Stephen Strange.
and I
So
did say that building up to this movie. That's why I'm saying, like, I think that the end of this movie does a good job at striking him out on his own. Like, I know, I agree. One of my biggest worries going into this movie was that it was going to be another borrow fest of not only Spider-Man, but he's borrowing from his other selves. And
mm,
to a point he did, but at the end of this, that's the future that I'm looking for. Is like, all right, he's on his own. He doesn't have the Avengers to fall back on, which he will. I mean, he'll go to the Avengers when something happens or the next Avengers movie comes out. He'll be with them. They won't know who his secret identity is, but they'll know of Spider-Man and they'll know he's a hero. So it'll probably reveal his identity to them. Gary, go ahead. You were about to say something.
No. I was just going to say that this is going to be a large mouthful, but I'm going to say it. This is the best Spider-Man film we've had so far. Out of everything. Out of the Raimi Spider-Mans, out of the Mark Webb ones, out of all of them. Because I'm going to go into well in a bit once we get into real stuff, because I know we want to talk about the Wtf moments, and I know that there's a couple more that you probably want to talk about.
Well,
There's no format to this. Like, let's say what you're going to say, and we'll dive into it. I mean,
Okay.
I really don't have too much of a format here. We're not doing a break. We're not doing a scene by scene breakdown. We're doing just topical discussion.
Okay. I don't know shit about Well, if you don't know shit about Spider-Man, this is a good film to start with. Because this
Not really,
introduces
because it's kind of a culmination of a lot of them.
Okay. So the second, well, the next Wtf moment, I suppose we have to talk about this is that, and this is a movie spoiler. If you've not seen the film, please, write down what I'm about to say. But both Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire are in this movie.
We already did the spoiler preface. You don't have to. Spoilers are all.
It's a spoiler.
Yeah, we already prefaced
anyway,
that.
Tom Holland, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are in this movie, and it was awesome because Ned does the whole Doctor Strange, creates a portal thing with his hand, and then you see Spider-Man with his back turned to them and they say Peter, and then he comes charging in and he goes back and he looks like a taller man because Tom Holland in real life isn't that tall. I think he's about 5 foot something. He's 5'8", maybe 5'9". He's not that tall. Anyway, the guy who comes in, he's a lot taller. Thinking, is this a different guy? And he goes, "Oh no, I'm a nice guy." And it's no, it's definitely. And then he takes it off his Andrew Garfield goes, "Ah!" And then I was going, and then he's and then he has to get the thing, and then the next bit when he goes Peter Parker, and then all of a sudden there's a guy who's facing to and he comes in, it's Tobey Maguire. I was like, yeah. I was like, it was just great to see them both back. It's just great to see them in this. And as I said, I've tried to hold in what I actually think about this. And this is the best MCU film we've had. This is better than Endgame. This is better than Civil War. I'm going to go into why in a few minutes of why I personally think that. Because Tom Holland has not really been given that much to do. He's this little kid, and in real life he's 20 something. So he's not a little kid in real life. But,
25.
Yeah, so he's always been portrayed as really young because he is really young. But I'm so maturity wise, he's always this optimistic little kid, and this is the first time we got depth for him. But also we got depth from Garfield, we got depth from Maguire. This was because the thing with Garfield is he got shitty movies that were put on his thing that he's a terrible actor. No, he's a great actor. He's just he was given really shitty scripts.
Oh.
And the thing is that this was a really good script that
Garfield or Maguire?
Well, both of them. Well, I thought Maguire was more of a sort of older brother sort of mentor figure.
No, I meant in there. You said that they had shit movies, and they were just It's...
Yeah, Andrew Garfield.
No. I'm talking about Garfield.
Garfield got the bad rap. Tobey Maguire just sucks his Spider-Man.
Garfield's a bit like Brandon Routh. They're good in their as the character, but unfortunately, they were given shit movies to perform in. Nothing wrong in Garfield. Being as Spider-Man. It's just those films are awful, absolutely awful.
Yeah, no, I'm not a fan of Maguire. As a matter of fact, since we're on Maguire and Garfield at this point, the one thing that I did not get in this movie that I'm pissed about is that Maguire's Spider-Man didn't die. God, when he was coming down with that and Maguire jumped in a way, I thought he was going to stab him. I was like, yes! And then he stabbed, and I'm like, no.
I knew he wasn't going to die.
I didn't want.
And then he didn't die.
He wasn't going to die because Aunt May died.
I'm going to disagree with you. I thought Maguire was really good in this. The sort of older brother, sort of mentor figure. You can tell that what he went through with all three Spider-Mans sort of affected him, and he's a different person and stuff like that. I thought this was Tobey's best performance in Spider-Man, in my personal opinion.
That was his first movie in 7 years.
Since 2014.
Yeah, no, it's hard to believe, like, and he looked good for it. He looked really good. I'm not sure if they're using any de-aging on him. I know they did on Alfred Molina and Willem Dafoe, but it's just good to see him in the suit and all of them. When all you saw three of them in the same frame, it was fan service galore. But I'm gonna go on some of my negatives now. Like I thought having Charlie Cox's Daredevil, Matt Murdock, in this was close to pointless. Like if this is all you're gonna give us of him, no courtroom drama scenes or anything like that, then why bother? It's like Peter Parker has been implemented for the murder of Mysterio, and all of a sudden, Peter Parker is no longer implemented. Obviously, the court of public opinion and all of that. I understand where they're going with that, but it just seemed very convenient, and it was a very poor use of a very beloved character in Matt Murdock, in my opinion.
Well,
It was just felt.
It is Matt Murdock's first appearance in an MCU film. So
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
it was good to see. It was good to see him when he. It was a little bit of fan service, and do you know what? I'll let it slide because do you know what?
He is a good lawyer.
Indeed, he is. And do you know what? As I said, the rest of the film is so great that I could just let it slide. It's one of those things that I could just let slide.
having Charlie Cox in there was it was a good nod. It made sense, but I agree with Zam halfway that they didn't give him much to do. Him sitting at the table with them saying, "Okay, these charges aren't going to stick," yeah, yada yada yada. Like kind of like, okay, I was kind of hoping to see him in the courtroom, and at least even I mean, they could have had the exact same scene just in a courtroom. You know what I mean? Like they'd have it would have been the same length of a scene, but it would have been Matt Murdock in a courtroom with Peter Parker in a suit and Aunt May sitting in the jury's, or not the jury, the whatever
In
back.
the
I
back.
don't know, yeah, the back. You can't call it the audience because I mean I guess it is, but like you could have had that exact same scene but in a courtroom. I feel like this scene was, and I'm not knocking it because I'm glad he was there, but I feel like the scene was just thrown together. They brought Charlie Cox in for one day of filming, and they're just like, look, we're gonna throw this in here because this is what the fans want, and we're gonna make them lose their shit. And at my theater, so my story with this movie is that I went to see it on Thursday. The first day was out here in the U.S., and the power went out 30 minutes in. So I had to wait till Saturday to see it again, or to see the whole movie. But we did get to that Murdoch scene in the theater on Thursday, and everybody lost their shit. Like everybody lost their shit when Murdoch showed up. Like as soon as that cane hit the ground and people realized it was him, they're like, "Oh shit!" As us stupid Americans do. So I mean,
And did you notice? I'm not sure if you know this, but John Favreau played Foggy Nelson in the Ben Affleck.
original Daredevil, yeah.
Yeah, in the Ben Affleck version. So that was a nice little thing to see them two together as well. But yeah, that's if that was one of my only gripes, really about the movie. Maybe a bit more Benedict Wong in the film as well would have been nice. He is the Sorcerer Supreme, which was really interesting.
I feel like that would have just cluttered it more. To truth be told, I really feel like more Benedict Wong would have cluttered it. Having an Spooter. This isn't the best Spidey movie in my eyes. Into the Spider-Verse is my favorite, but definitely second best for sure. I mean, Into the Spider-Verse is definitely a fantastic movie. But I still would not agree that this movie is, or that movie is better than this one.
Well,
Yeah, I was
well,
going to say
how about
that.
live action though? Like Into the Spider Verse is animated, yeah. Would you say this is the best? Because I don't really, I don't think about the animated movies too much when I think of Spider-Man films. And for me, I'll say it right now, this is the
You,
best Spider-Man ever.
I do you know what? You're absolutely 1,000% right, and I'll go into why, because this deals with. I mean, this has Tom Holland going through range of emotion. I mean, this film has a scene in it where he looks like a stone cold killer. No, he's not the most intimidating guy in the world. He's a pretty small, lanky guy. But in this, like the scene when he's like beating the crap out of Willem Dafoe and about to kill him, and I was like, oh my god, he's actually gonna do it. And like it wasn't until Maguire basically like held it back, and literally not a word was said, and that was really good acting because like because again they weren't saying anything. There was just like the way that they were the eye connection and stuff like. And I love the fact that it feeds back into there were callbacks to their own films, but they used it, even things that fans have complained about, but you used it as a strength rather than a weakness. Used it as, we're not going to forget this. We're actually going to use this as part of the story to tell a bigger part of the narrative. Like, we don't want this Spider-Man to go down the straight path. We don't want him to become this murdering person that that Tobey Maguire was when he killed the guy he thought who killed his uncle. When the bit when Andrew Garfield Spider-Man saved MJ, and my entire flaming audience just lost their flaming shit and just went because he was just like
I knew that was gonna happen, boss man. When I saw MJ fucking falling down on the trailer, and the rumors were around that Maguire and Andrew Garfield was going to be in this movie. Until we saw them, it was confirmed. But I thought to myself, I bet you, I put both my bollocks. I like betting my bollocks, and I bet both my bollocks that Andrew Garfield is going to make the save, and he did. Some things were kind of predictable in that particular department. I'm going to go with more of my negatives because, like I said, I do like this film. I think.
Well, hold on. I want to, before you do that, I want to expand on that scene though, since you brought it up. But here's the thing though, is that you did predict that, but I feel like what happened afterward, like after the save, was so much better because like
the emotion.
Andrew Garfield just portrayed that sense of regret and loss, but yet relief, and like that same like
bittersweet.
Yeah, he's like, she's like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah. And then he's getting ready, trying to hold it together. And she's like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah. Like, that's why I say Andrew Garfield's so much better of a Peter Parker. They did go a little more awkward with him in this one than I might have, but a lot of people, he was the comic relief Spider-Man apparently in this one. So, okay, whatever. But still, it was
all three of them were really strong in this, personally. There wasn't one who was sort of sidelined, or you would rather wasn't there. I know that you're not the biggest Tobey Maguire fan, but
it was still Tom Holland's movie, which is what I appreciated. Like, even though we had these two guys come in, they were just supporting. They weren't ever taking the limelight from Tom Holland. They were just there to boost him, and they did. Before I read this out, I want to quickly say that my other negatives was Flint Marco and Dr. Connors. The Lizard and the Sandman. I really like. I don't even know if Riff Alphonse was genuinely in this movie. I know we saw him turn back later on and all of that, but I'm not even sure, how much he was in this movie. I know they need to fill out the dogs list with the previous villains from the other movies, but I really thought he was used poorly. I mean, the guy's a scientist as well. You would have thought that they would have used his help on the fabricator and shit like that. Flint Marco was interesting as well. He was reformed at the end of Spider-Man 3. It was an interesting scene, but his motive seemed very unusual. Obviously what they did with Willem and Alfred and Jamie was okay, but it's very hard, and I don't hold it against them. It's the pull of what they did. This is like Days of Future Past. X-Men, like, the audacity, I did say that when we reviewed that movie, the audacity to try something like this and make it work most of the way, it has to be applauded. It was never going to be perfect, but it did work.
Yeah, well, it's like a reverse Days of Future Past. Brought a bunch of people from the past to the future. So, and I agree. I agree with the Flint Marco thing. I think it was it was great to see him and him team up with Spider-Man in the beginning. Like when he first got there with, because they parted on him and Spider-Man, although he didn't know it wasn't his Spider-Man. They parted on good terms. So he's like, hey, what's going on, Spider-Man? What, blah, 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 But then I felt it was very weak because then when him and Electro took off from the loft or the Oasis or whatever it's called, it was like what Flint, what are you doing? Where are you going? Where are you going to go? Like, what are you doing? Like, you want to get back to your daughter. Obviously, Peter's the one that you need to be working with to get that to happen. So I don't know why now. I don't even have a theory on that. Like, it was just kind of a stupid decision to get Flint Marco to run and to join the bad guys. It really was.
I agree. Want to read this one out?
I can. Gotta say, William Dafoe is absolutely fantastic in this movie. He brings Tom's anger and great responsibility moment out of him, and he's so unpredictable. Unpredictable in this. better than his older performances, in my opinion. And I definitely agree with you on that because he was definitely, and I do like the fact that they got rid of that mask like early on.
When he broke it and stuff like that.
Yeah. Because this is part of the reason why half of me wishes that some of these villains would have stayed in this universe, like Alfred Molina and William Dafoe and Jamie Foxx. I mean, the other ones okay, but they didn't really contribute much, in my opinion. But I really wish that those three would have stayed, only because they would have proven to be good like foes in the future for Spider-Man. However, I am kind of glad they're going back because William Dafoe and Alfred Molina are aging, and I mean, although they're not
in
like
their 70s.
old, huh?
Both of them are in their 70s.
Really, Alfred Molina's in his 70s?
Wow. Yeah.
So that de-aging really works then. But still, like, I mean, do you really want to commit to people, like that and keep them in this universe when they're aging like that? And as I said, I hope they have many years of great health, but at the same time, it's like you kind of have to watch out for your future investments. So I'm kind of glad they went back at the same time. One of the things that I really, really appreciated, though, one of the things that I thought was interesting, speaking of Green Goblin and Dafoe, there is no Norman Osborn and there is no Oscorp in the MCU. They blatantly say, like, they say, who's Norman Osborn? What is Oscorp? So there is no, like, everyone's been like, did Oscorp and Norman Osborn buy the Avengers Tower, yada yada. There is none. Like, now that's not to say that one doesn't show up eventually, but
the one thing that they did do, and it's one thing that I actually picked up on, was that they do have a feast. So that means that we could get a Mr. Negative in this universe.
Yeah. Well, they had that in the last movie too. Feast was in Far From Home in the beginning.
So we could have Mr. Negative. And also,
I'm just saying as well, boss man, like with the Multiverse of Madness and them somehow having to show in the X-Men, there's other ways of getting Norman Osborn back into this universe, in various ways. So,
especially with the new actor, as I said, I mean, I like William Dafoe, but you're right. The guy's in his 70s.
I would do a Harry Osborn and make him a Hobgoblin and do it that way.
No. You're doing Spider-Man 3 all over again. Harry Osborn was never Hobgoblin.
He was Hobgoblin in the cartoons, no?
No.
Okay.
So not in the comics.
Hobgoblin was a criminal.
Yeah,
I know Ned. Ned was Hobgoblin.
Ned was Hobgoblin, and Jason Philip McIndale was also Hobgoblin. So, and there's probably another one. I don't remember all their names. Yeah, Ned, and that Spooter, that kind of brings up, and I kind of was hoping for more of a inkling as to Ned becoming like maybe a goblin. Instead they're like going to make him like a magician or a wizard now.
The
thing is that he just to say that because he's had his mind wiped. Maybe he's forgotten that he has this magical powers. And
no, he's forgotten Spider-Man. He hasn't necessarily forgotten the power, because you have to remember, like watching this a second time, when he went into Stephen Strange's headquarters, wherever it's called. What's it called? The
Sanctum Sanctorum.
The Sanctum Sanctorum. Okay. Yeah, he was really awed by it, but he did briefly mention that there was magic in his family, and he mentioned to Stephen, "Yes, I get some tingling in my fingers," and Steve said, "You better see a doctor about that." Made me laugh very much, and then obviously we found out that he has got magical powers, so we'll see where that goes. I personally want him to turn villain. I want him to go Hale, because that's how it works. If you have a best friend, so end up being your worst enemy, and especially in the Spider-Man universe. So yes.
But as I said, So, went to a really, really good bit, which was just as I said, like Tom Holland was the best he's been in any of these movies, including Civil War, because he goes the full gambit of emotions here. From angry to sad, that hopeful, the youthful experience, and as I said, I just sorry.
No, go on, keep talking.
No. Sorry, just in case you wanted to read that bit. Sorry. But again, as I said, this film was great just because we got to see all three Spider-Men, and we also got to see them in a really, really good film. I mean, Tobey Maguire, made me forget that he was in Spider-Man 3 and did that stupid dance and was with Topher Grace and stuff like that. And the thing is, I was thinking, there have been rumours, and I know that this will please Cheeto, that they're going to bring back Garfield and Maguire's Spider-Man.
Well, they've talked about bringing them back and doing them in animated form for the animated movies because multiverse. So that's okay. Here's the thing about Maguire. If you want to get into Maguire, okay. So he was good as kind of like the older, experienced Spider-Man because he can be boring and be wise. He was boring back when he was supposed to be a high school college student. He was boring as Spider-Man. He was wooden as an actor as Spider-Man. I grew up reading the comics. I grew up watching the TV shows. I'm sorry. Tobey Maguire, as beloved as he is, was one of the worst picks for Spider-Man I could have ever have imagined. Like, this is reverse Michael Keaton. Like, everyone thought Michael Keaton was the worst, and then he turned out to be one of the greatest. No, Tobey Maguire was just, to me, was god awful as Spider-Man. And even by the third one, like, it's just he barely got any better. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I can't. Everyone who sings Tobey Maguire's praises, I'm sorry. That's fine. You can have your opinion, but I've read the comics for years. I've seen all types of media for Spider-Man, and Tobey Maguire is just not a good Spider-Man. He was better now because he's supposed to be older, wiser, and more boring. But now go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say it's because he had the the ring thing that let him do that. Because that's what that ring thing does. It opens portals.
Oh, you're talking about the comic. Okay.
Yeah, Spoiler but basically said, that's one of my gripes with the movie. How has Ned managed to learn this socially and ironically open portals for Andrew and Toby to come through?
Because of the rings.
Because he did mention earlier that the magic runs in the family. Then he had the ring, Stephen Strange's ring, and then he just briefly mentioned about wanting Peter Parker back, and he was being animated by waving his hands around, and he caused a spark, and that's how they did it. And before you know it, we have Garfield and Maguire, and everybody losing their shit.
I will forgive it only because this movie was so good, but I do get where Spooter is coming from because in Doctor Strange 1, it's something that takes a long time to learn. So is Ned a more proficient sorcerer than Stephen Strange is?
Why not?
I'm just saying, I get where Spooter's coming from. I'll allow it because it was in a good movie and it had a good outcome, and it's a stretch, but it works.
Strange, he studied sorcery because of his hands being fucked. He wanted to resolve all of these problems with his life. Ned is part of a lineage of magicians, so it came more natural to him than it would have to Stephen. So that's how I look at it. There's natural, and then there's educated. Stephen's the educated one, and Ned is the natural one. Now I want to go into the fight between Spider-Man and Stephen Strange. What do you guys think of that?
I thought it was brilliant because the thing is that because he puts him into that that other realm, and he's
mirror universe.
Yeah, and the stuff this is where we got to see what Tom Holland's Spider-Man is really good at outside of being Spider-Man, that he's a genius at mathematics because he's looking at it, he's like, oh, what does this remind me of? Oh yeah, geometry. It's and you can see him looking at different things, and he gets him to that, and then he tries him up, and it's that is genius because we got to see.
Go on, boss man, don't stop.
this was like pointing into what he's good outside of being Spider-Man. That he's a genius mathematician. Because Garfield's one was always a good chemist because he created his own webs and stuff like that. Whereas Tom Holland didn't need to create his own webs, because it came from
that's Maguire.
No. Tom Holland didn't either because he got the web shooters that were like the mechanical things from Tony Stark.
No, he created that. Before. Tony Stark was impressed by it. Remember?
Tony Stark upgraded it, but no, he had his own basic form of web shooters when.
No, it's okay, Spooder.
Spooder, don't worry about it. Boss Man has vocalepsy. He just stops in the middle of a sentence and just.
Shut up. No, but the thing is that, but this was like what he's good at because, like as I said, Andrew Garfield was a great scientist. Toby was more.
And Tobey Maguire was a photographer.
Well, but also Andrew Garfield did not invent the web fluid or invent the webbing. Remember, he got that from Oscorp. He harnessed it and he made the web shooter and everything, but he did not invent the webbing because remember that came from Oscorp. They already had it. He got some of the Oscorp webbing and then made it so that it could shoot it from a web shooter. So he didn't really invent the web fluid. It actually was something that he got from Oscorp.
Well, let me reach to somebody who agrees with you, Tito.
Yes.
I absolutely agree with you. I stated for having the opinion that Toby is the worst Spider-Man. He's wooden a Spider-Man character, but as solid as Peter Parker, bad comic interpretation. No need to apologize, by the way, Spooder.
I disagree.
I'm on the fence on it.
Well, here's where I disagree. Right, Toby was really good, given the material he was given, and the thing is that people forget that an actor can only do so much with a pretty average script. Another thing is that Sam Raimi's a good director, but I don't think script is really the thing because a lot of the lines that we think of for The Evil Dead, Bruce Campbell ad-libbed them. So, he's a very good, he lets people ad-lib stuff. And I think that was what happened here. And again, I think the thing is that, Tobey Maguire wasn't really given the script to do the whole, snarky Spider-Man. That's why, I thought in Spider-Man 2, he was a lot more sure-footed as Spider-Man, in my opinion. I don't think he was wooden. I just think he was just wasn't given the scripts to be the snippy sort of quirky Spider-Man that we love.
Nope, I don't agree with you at all. Sorry, and that's fine. I mean, you can disagree with me. That's fine and dandy. But as I said, with somebody with the multitude of media that I have with Spider-Man, I don't see it. I don't see it. I never will. You guys can argue with me until you're blue in the face, and it will just fall flat, just like Tobey Maguire's acting skills at least in the early stuff. Now, in this movie, I will admit he did better in this movie as an older Peter Parker and as
a mentor.
Yeah, and a mentor. He did better. I'm not saying he's a shit actor. I'm saying he's the wrong person for Peter Parker Spider-Man. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying Tobey Maguire's the shittiest actor ever. I haven't seen him in enough stuff to know that he's the shittiest actor ever. But looking at him, I don't see Peter Parker ever.
Okay, well, look, I'm very much on the fence on that personally. I see where you're coming from, but I don't think the movies themselves were that bad.
No, I don't think so. I don't.
No budget one with Vance later on tonight.
Okay. No, and actually, I think Spider-Man 1 and 2 are very, very good. It even with the bad acting of Kirsten Dunst and I don't want to say the bad acting of Kirsten Dunst, but she was not that great of a choice for MJ either. We can get into that some other day. But the first two movies were great. The first two movies were great in spite of the lead actors. The third one honestly had really great moments in it and really great themes to it, but studio ruined that one. So, I mean, in spite of Tobey Maguire, a lot of those earlier movies were still pretty good. I still think Spider-Man 2 is my favorite. I'm still up in the air about Spider-Man 2 and and this one. It's definitely close between those two.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Now, I just want to go now into some of the fan service we got in this movie because, oh boy, did we get fan service galore, you know? So, when it comes to maybe returning characters like Matt Murdock, which was definitely part of it, but some of the lines as well, because I had a bit of drink in my mouth when Willem Dafoe said, I'm something of a scientist myself, and I thought, meme alert, meme alert. He actually said it. Couldn't believe it. But I was laughing so much that he said that. You know, and those were good movies. Obviously, the fan service of the Spider-Man coming back, as well as all of the villains coming back as well, and even though this was not the Sinister Six, it was a Sinister Five. You could say that J. Jonah Jameson is arguably that sixth person. I mean, he's definitely an antagonist for Spider-Man.
Well,
You know,
you could argue it's the Sinister Six because Venom is in it.
but he doesn't confront Spider-Man.
And okay, if we want to talk about Venom really quick, that makes no sense. The only way it makes sense, I heard this one theory that might kind of sort of make sense, is that it says Venom transversed into the MCU. It's only supposed to be people that know Peter Parker as Spider-Man. Makes no sense that Venom would be there. However, I have heard a theory that there's a conversation at the end credits scene of Let There Be Carnage, that the symbiote the consciousness of the symbiote can transverse the multiverse, and that's how a version of the symbiote knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So, but then why weren't there a billion Venoms why weren't there a billion Venoms in the MCU? Why was it just one?
Yeah, I heard that rumor about the hive mind as well.
I'm okay with it being in the same universe, but across the multiverse, that makes no sense.
Well, people have said that they wish that Topher Grace was in it. I'm like, well, I'm glad that he wasn't. Not the thing as Topher Grace is just like he's a terrible Eddie Brock. I mean, it'd be good to see him just like in the back somewhere saying, "I know what it's like to be cussed aside" or something like that. There's something with a pie or something like that.
No, you know what? But that would have been funny though at the end if Topher Grace, like if at the end credit scene, if Topher Grace and Tom Hardy were sitting there at the bar talking with that bartender, like I don't want to see Topher Grace's Venom ever again. But at the same time, I was kind of like, I was thinking about that. I'm like, if it did bring all the Venoms that know, like, wouldn't it be hilarious to see Topher Grace and Tom Hardy sitting there talking to this bartender about the MCU, and they're both just utterly confused, and then they both go back to their respective universes.
I just thought the fact that we had Tom Hardy's Venom in the mid-credit scene just for him to fuck off again and leave a little bit of Venom doo-doo behind.
Well, I think that's something they could have Venom in Tom Holland's films now, which is a shame.
Yeah, but we have Venom already.
Tom Hardy, but
Sony owns, that this film was Sony through and through. By the way, they fucking had their hooks all over this shit. But as much as the MCU want Tom Holland and Spider-Man to be part of their universe, he's a Sony property. Venom is a Sony property. If they want Venom and Tom Holland Spider-Man to be together, they can do. Nothing fucking Disney can do about it, and they would have to make it work. They would have to. So I'm just, I just don't get it. I just don't get it. They, in my opinion, if they had their hooks, if Disney got their hooks into Venom and had their part to play in it, they would probably improve on what Sony's done, because everything good about Tom Holland's Spider-Man is because he's in the MCU. Everything good about it. That's why it's so popular in the first place. You put Venom and make him part of the MCU, I'm sure Kevin Feige can work his fucking magic and make it work, So I'm very upset that he just came in, left his doodle, and went out again. But I do expect in this next Spider-Man movie that symbiote to get his parts all over Tom.
Right, Sony, if you're listening to me, and I know you're not, but yeah, Give us another Andrew Garfield Spider-Man film. Because I want to see one.
That won't happen. Maybe if they do an animated Amazing Spider-Man 3, maybe and they release it on Blu-ray, like direct, maybe. But no, you're not going to get that. And honestly, I'm okay with that because it's too far beyond the point. Truth be told.
So basically, Venom was just transported to MC just to set up. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's all it was, and I was kind of upset when he went back.
Andrew Garfield's not that old. He's I think he's about my age. I think.
Yeah, 35, I think. He was 29 when he was doing Spider-Man 2. Like, what is it with getting fucking adults playing teenagers?
Well, that's why MCU did it better with Tom Holland, man. He was what, 19? 18?
Yeah, but he's 25. He's 25 now, and he's playing a 17-year-old. I want the next Spider-Man movie to have maybe a bit of a time jump, and no more fucking child Spider-Man. He's man now. Put the 21, 22, 23 years old.
Yeah, and what I really appreciate about this movie is that it does take place, so like the timestamps, it does take place over a couple months. However, I mean, this movie picks up right where Far From Home left off. So, and if you notice, it's at Christmas time, like at the end of the movie. So it probably lines up with Hawkeye. So probably the events of Hawkeye going on right now is right around the same time, and it's also the beginning of school. So the beginning of this movie, like the beginning parts when he's going back to school, so it's probably October, November. So the events of Hawkeye happening are like right around this exact same time.
I just wanted to quickly say that at the end of the movie, when Spider-Man jumps out the window and it's all snowing and he's fucking swinging around and shit, he swings over the Christmas tree and the ice rink and shit like that. And I swear that same place is going to be used for the finale of Hawkeye.
Yeah.
And so there is something there. It is obviously set in Christmas. I do also want to say that this film was made less than a year ago. You have to understand. They started making this movie, in December, January. And what they pulled off without any reshoots and stuff like that is quite remarkable. Anyway, what did Spoder say?
Yeah, it's a really low blow and lazy decision. I was looking forward to a huge encounter with Venom and Spider-Man. I agree. I want Tom Hardy and Tom Holland's perspective characters. I wanted them together. I was excited when at the end of Let There Be Carnage, he blipped over, whatever. He came over to the other universe. I was very sad about that. We have a Twitch user here. Dark Sage 9117, unpopular opinion. I did not enjoy this movie. As an avid reader of the Marvel and DC comics, Spider-Man was too close to Tony Stark in this trilogy. Who's been saying that the whole time? And this is not how Spider-Man was in the comics. Unless they need to change the characters for viable reasons, let them alone. I mean, I agree. Dark Sage, I'm assuming this is your first time watching. I've been saying with our entire build up to this movie, because we kind of the past couple weeks we've been reviewing the No Way Home trilogy, or all the Spider-Man movies, and I've said about the biggest problem with the Homecoming trilogy is what I'm calling it, is that Spider-Man always is in the shadow of Iron Man. In Homecoming, Far From Home, it's always been about Tony Stark. Vulture and Mysterio were leftover Tony Stark B villains, and that's why in this movie, I know that in this movie, Spider-Man's borrowing from himself. That was my big worry going into this movie. But the end of this movie gave me a huge, huge, just great sense of joy to know that we might be getting like a Peter Parker that we know from the comics. He's in a rundown apartment. He's on his own. Unfortunately, Aunt May is gone, and nobody knows who he is. He even left MJ and Ned, which is a huge, like, Tom Holland can I just say Tom Holland knocked this performance out of the park. I don't even think I said it yet, but I have to say it. Tom Holland knocked this performance out of the park. From what Gary was saying earlier, when he was going to try to kill Green Goblin, I mean, and the parts where Aunt May died and everything. God, just Tom Holland was so good in this compared to the other movies. And even in the Avengers movies.
Yeah, so Dark Sage, I respectfully disagree with you. This was an awesome movie, and again, like, because again, it picked upon the things that people complained about within the individual parts of the movies that they were critiqued, and they actually, instead of ignoring them, they actually built upon it. It said, "This is how we get to improve." Oh yeah, by the way, can we just say how great Jamie Foxx was in this movie? Because like you know,
yeah, we can. Jamie
he
Foxx,
was
I really liked him. What was that, boss man?
I say like because he wasn't the blue guy anymore. Now he was proper Mysterio. You know, he's in this military.
You mean Electro?
Sort of like fatigues, but you actually have the yellow energy rather than the blue energy. And I thought that was awesome. And the thing is
technically, he was blue in the very beginning. Like when he was coming through, he was blue, but then the energies kind of transformed him. And honestly, I don't care as long as we didn't get the big Dr. Manhattan dude that we had in Amazing Spider-Man. I was okay with it. Go ahead.
As I said, I thought this was a great performance because we got like the sort of like smooth, Jamie Foxx thing that he does, where he's like it's like cool and he's like but sort of like there's this sort of menace behind him and stuff like that. As I said, I thought his performance was great, and I like the fact that in this film there's not really a bad performance. Alfred Molina was great.
Oh yeah, Alfred Molina was great. William Dafoe was great. Here's the thing about I did not dislike Jamie Foxx at all in this movie, but I just want to preface the fact that basically Jamie Foxx kind of just played himself as Electro. Yeah, like he kind of played himself as Electro, and I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay with that. I'm just saying, like, I'm not going to say that he went out on a limb and changed the character. Jamie Foxx was himself as Electro. So I thought it was good. I thought Jamie Foxx was really good in this, and he was one of my favorite parts of this movie. Scooter says, what?
Sorry, regarding Darkseid, what he said earlier, you see, I have a different opinion on all of this. Like, this is a different Spider-Man, and we've already got that. We've already confirmed that now because we have a multiverse where we saw the other two Spider-Man in this movie. This Spider-Man is part of a universe full of other superheroes, and I don't mind the fact that he comes across different compared to the other two Spider-Man. He's being mentored by people who believe in him and all of that. So we have an intertwining of all these superheroes together and stuff like that. I don't mind that at all. It was a different take. I didn't mind him being, Iron Boy, so to speak. I know. I guess some people minded that, but because he was part of this intertwining universe, I had no problem with that. Yes, go on.
I was going to say the love interest this time. Zendaya, how you pronounce it. She was really good at this. Because usually, last couple. I mean, the thing is that.
Boss man, put a pin in that really quick. Let's do this comment here, and then we will. I planned on getting into MJ and Ned, and I'll let you lead off with that. But let's do this comment first. He's in the shadow of Tony Stark, but he shows in Homecoming and Far From Home that he can adapt to a situation on his own. One example being the homemade suit against the Vulture. There was no Stark there. But still, like the Vulture, overall, the Vulture was a leftover Iron Man villain. The Vulture hated Tony Stark. He even said it. And I'm not saying that they have to hate. As I said, if the Vulture shows up now, we can consider him a Spider-Man villain. But the Vulture's origin is deep rooted in Iron Man. So, like, yeah, if Vulture shows up again, he's a Spider-Man villain. But in Homecoming, he was a B-list Iron Man villain. He was a leftover Iron Man villain. Same thing with Quentin Beck in Far From Home. So that's fine. As I said, I respect everybody's opinion.
I also look at it like this, like, how does a 15, 16-year-old boy have adult villains like that? So the way they implemented it seemed a lot more organic. Like, there were other people's problems, but he had to deal with them.
Okay, I will give you that it did seem a little bit more organic than Spider-Man just running into Vulture or Quentin Beck out in them, but still, it still felt like they were using Iron Man to kind of build villains for Spider-Man. Anyway, okay, so Boss Man wanted to talk about MJ and Ned, so you go right on ahead.
So I get like sometimes the female leads in these Spider-Man films can be a little bit bland or they could be a bit unsufferable. Like, Emma Stone in the second one, people didn't like her
I
performance.
totally disagree with you on that one. Emma Stone was fantastic in both movies, but keep going.
No, I'm saying to some people. I'm not saying that I agree with it. I'm just saying that is. But I thought Zendaya, how I pronounce it. Her performance in this film was great. Because you could tell that she, the end scene when he's telling her that that she's gonna forget him was just was heartbreaking. Just she started to cry and she's basically saying you need to come back and tell me how you feel about me and all this sort of stuff. It was just I mean, to figure out the person that you're in love with, that you love them and stuff like that, and to let them go. And the thing is that when he goes into the coffee shop and he gets a coffee and he's looking at her and you're thinking, right, it's about to tell her how he feels, and he doesn't say it. It's why is he not telling her? It's because he realized that Spider-Man is deadly to people.
I agree. I mean, I think you're glitching out, boss man. Did you stop talking or are you?
And but the thing is that their chemistry was unbelievable. Sorry,
I already put that up there, Zam.
Sorry.
It's okay. But I agree with Spooter. Is Gwen Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy was definitely the best of the three. Zendaya is definitely a second. I mean, she's in this movie especially. She really turned up her game. I do want to address the fact that they did try to shoehorn in her last name was
Michelle
hyphenated.
Jones.
Well, yeah, Michelle Joan Watson. I'm like, really?
I don't mind. I don't mind these things. Like when Norman saw her and
they're trying to backtrack a little bit. They tried to make it different. Now they're trying to backtrack. Just whatever. Like they already made MJ Michelle Jones.
Retconning is unfortunately a thing that's going to happen, and I totally understand that. But I like those little things like the similarities and the differences between the universes. I remember when Norman said to her, when she introduced herself to Norman, she goes, "Yeah, I'm MJ," and he said, "What, Mary Jane?" And he goes, "No, Michelle Jones." I like that. I don't know why, but I just do. It just shows that things are different. And
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I don't mind that,
yeah.
but then when they tried to shoehorn the Watson part in there in this movie, I'm just like, okay, now you're just backtracking on, you're trying to Mandarin this. You're
No.
trying to retcon this and make it Michelle Jones Watson. It's like, no, just stop. Just
Well,
let it be. Just run with what you have.
now with Lando Calrissian and Donald Glover's character, which was in Homecoming, mentioned that he has a nephew called Miles, and obviously when Andrew Garfield revealed himself to Max Dillon, aka Electro, Electro was a bit upset that he found out that his Spider-Man from his universe wasn't black. But then that did nicely lead to a possibility of, or not possibility, but acknowledging the fact that Miles Morales is, or he's biracial, half black, and I'm sure that something's going to occur from that at some point in the future. Do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean that was definitely a tip of the hat to Miles Morales, which I mean, if there's anything that came out of the Ultimate Universe that I actually liked, it's Miles Morales. I hated everything about the Ultimate Universe, but the more I've gotten to know Miles Morales between comics and games and everything like that, I actually really do like Miles Morales as a Spider-Man.
I want the unknown, by the way. You don't need a big name actor to play him. Some unknown kid. As long as he's a good actor, and he's a bit like Tom Holland. Tom Holland was perfect because the guy's a gymnast, for fuck's sake.
Yeah,
He was absolutely. You need to look along those lines. When it comes to finding the Miles Morales character, but like Shang-Chi, I don't care who. I rather have an unknown and see somebody grow into the role than somebody famous.
we got a
Yeah.
comment.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, Electro said something like, "Damn, all this time I thought you were black. Surely there's got to be a black Spider-Man out there." And yeah, that's, as I said, that was definitely a tip to Miles Morales. There definitely, I know that they've said that Tom Holland has signed on, or at least I think. Well, they've said that Marvel Studios and Sony has signed on for 3 more movies, with Marvel Studios. So I mean, obviously they're probably going to build up to Miles Morales. I would think in the next ones because eventually Tom Holland is going to grow out of the role of Peter. Well, maybe not grow out of the role as Peter Parker, but he's going to want to move on to other things, and
Well,
so
no,
probably.
but unless they restart the thing, which is something I don't necessarily want anytime soon. I don't mind Holland's character aging into the role. Spider-Man has not always been a teenager. He's been a young man. He's been a man in his 30s. He's been an old man. I don't mind where they take it. And then once again, with Miles Morales, he can always take on the mantle. So I'm fine with them for the next 15, 20 years going down that route, in my opinion.
Well, he himself, I'm talking about Tom Holland here, has said that he wants to do the role until he's 30 and then quit. And considering he's 25, he's only got like 5 years left. So,
Well, he says 30, but he will have to do it until he's maybe into his early to mid 30s if he's doing another trilogy. But apparently, Sony want to do another trilogy, you know? And then maybe by the fourth or fifth film, we start seeing Miles coming into play so that eventually we have a baton pass, to Miles from Peter Parker, because that needs to happen at some point. But it's all about how they milk this. They really have to make it work, But eventually, people, as good as this can get, people will get fatigued. It's only so you can only pull a rabbit out the hat so many times before people start rolling their eyes and not get impressed by what you're saying. And once again, they have to keep it MCU. If Sony decides to take this outside the MCU, no one will care. Tom Holland or not, they want MCU. They want the odd Avenger character here and there. Like that, would it be a major one like Stephen Strange, or a side one like Happy Hogan? Now, do you think in the future that people will find out again who Peter Parker is? Do you think he'll be able to reverse the spell in certain places? I don't know.
I think the way that the spell worked in the comic books is once he revealed his identity to people, then they all remembered everything. So
Convenient. Convenient.
It is very convenient, but in the Spider-Man comic books, like when this whole thing happened, Peter finally revealed himself to the Fantastic Four, because Johnny Storm even confronted him. The Human Torch even said, I know who you are, but I can't remember who you are. And he's like, I really find it offensive that you are holding your identity from me, even though you so at the it's some kind of weird storyline where they were crossing over, and at the end of the storyline he unmasked himself in front of the Fantastic Four, and he said, and I think it was really some of the first people that he actually revealed his identity back to. It doesn't break the spell completely, but it does. But it did, and then all of a sudden, Johnny and Reed and Sue and Ben, they all remembered all the Spider-Man stuff, like everything that had to do with Spider-Man, but they could not remember. Like whenever they thought of his face unmasked, it was just like a blank spot. So, I mean, I think this spell worked a little bit differently because everybody forgot about Peter Parker. But because nobody knew who Peter Parker was. But anyway. What are your guys' thoughts on the comedy throughout this movie? I thought at times there was a bit too much, and Electro felt out of place at times because he felt like Jamie Foxx in a costume. I just said that earlier. As I said with Electro, basically what happened is it was Jamie Foxx as Electro is what I said. But I thought the comedy was fine. I mean, Spider-Man's always had a bit of comedy in it, I feel. I felt like the comedy in this movie hit a lot better than in the original trilogy, the Raimi movies. And I felt like the chemistry was better in this trilogy as well.
Well, I feel that this is the last film from Zendaya and Jacob, the guy who plays Ned.
Ned.
I think it's going to be the last film for both of them. Maybe just I don't know, because it just feels like because they're both talking about going to MIT. So I think that they're going to have a different sort of path to Peter now, and the truth is that he's not told them who he is. I don't even know if they're going to have any sort of relationship afterwards, because Like you could tell in his face that he didn't want to put them in danger by telling him who he is and the feelings he has for them. So
I agree. I agree with you that it did feel very final, but I feel like they're not going to be done with this, especially Ned Leeds, because I feel they've been building towards. I feel like they've been building towards a Hobgoblin for a while, and I feel like that in this next trilogy we're going to see that at some point. But also, I feel like I thought it might open up the opportunity for Spider or for Peter Parker to like meet Gwen Stacy maybe, and I don't know if they want to bring that in or not.
Black Cat, maybe.
Huh?
Black Cat.
Or yeah, Black Cat's another character that they can bring in. So I mean, I don't think this is the end for Zendaya and Ned, but
I need to know, like, does he still have Edith?
I don't know.
Yeah, the Irish guy.
Edith is the glasses that can control everything.
Irish guy. What? The glasses, the Tony Stark glasses, even dead, I'm the hero.
Because the glasses are AI, they're not living, and would they still recognize Peter as, yeah?
Actually, my son brought up a really good point. After we saw the movie, my son asked, he's like, so wait, Wanda won't remember, Doctor Strange won't remember. He's like, what about Vision? And I thought about it, and I'm like, Vision's an AI, and he's not like, he doesn't have the Mind Stone, so I wouldn't even consider him half sentient at this point. Because like with the Mind Stone, it was kind of iffy if he was sentient or not. But I'm like, would Vision recognize Peter Parker?
The white Vision we're talking about, yeah?
Yeah, the white Vision, yes, from WandaVision. Like, but that's what I'm saying. Like, would Vision because if you put Mjolnir in an elevator, the elevator still goes up. Elevator's not worthy. So I mean,
I hate that. That's so stupid.
That is a great joke.
You can put Mjolnir in a fucking airplane. The airplane's gonna fly, man.
Nope, that's a great joke. Great joke.
Because Mjolnir was in a flying aircraft hangar in Avengers 1, assembled. So like, I can't stand that fucking thing, about elevators being worthy. I just wanted to backhand the fucking writer when they wrote that shit, goddamn fucking asshole.
Nope, it's a great joke. It's an appropriate joke.
The way to say it, inanimate objects are not worthy or not. I don't know.
But exactly.
But yeah, Sony, right? The thing is that you've knocked it out of the park with this one. I mean, like, I've been a critic of yours for your Spider-Man films, but I thought this was the best one that you've done so far. You gave us, I think, the best, the best depictions of these three Spider-Man on screen. And as somebody who's a big Spider-Man comic book reader, it was good to see the story because the thing is, in the comic books, this wasn't done by Stephen Strange. This was done by our old friend Buddy and pal Mephisto. I'm glad it was done by Stephen Strange, and there
was a bit of a retcon in the comic books because originally it was Mephisto, but then they went back in the comic books and retconned it back to Doctor Strange and Tony Stark doing the spell to make everybody forget. It was a pretty big stupid to do. But they did retcon it in the comic books to be Doctor Strange and Tony Stark who made everybody forget. So, okay, I'm glad they didn't go the Mephisto route. Oh God, that would have, because they could have with Aunt May dying. That was all a part of the Brand New Day stuff. I don't think Peter would go back.
No, but as I said, the thing is that hopefully, as I said, there are big rumors going about.
I think Boss Man kind of glitched out. I don't think Peter would go back to Edith. The whole basis of the trilogy is that Peter has a whole arc, from a kid to a man. That's why he's in the shadow of Tony, but he breaks out of that shell. And I'm very excited that he's breaking out of that shell because I could not stand the fact that he was so far up Mr. Stark's asshole throughout most of this stuff that it just bugged me.
All I'm saying is that, people are going to keep bringing up these fucking glasses as long as they are around. Unless they get destroyed, then they are going to be a MacGuffin at some point in future films that people will wonder, why the fuck is he not using these things? Because he has the entire he has an armada of weaponry at his fingertips with those fucking glasses, and also I don't know, Nick Fury as well. He'll be interested in Edith. Now he doesn't know who Peter Parker is. I don't know. I just feel there's something there, and it can't be ignored, in my opinion. It has to be resolved, or Edith gets destroyed. Something along those lines. It needs to be dealt with in the future.
So a quick question though. So the officer, the detective that brought Peter Parker in said that Nick Fury was off world for the past year. Is Nick Fury a public figure?
Yes.
Yes, he's an Avenger.
Okay. I always felt like he was not like a public figure though. Shield was not a. I guess he could have been.
But at the same time, he was talking to police officers, not like to a guy on the street.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
like.
I was
And
trying
like
to
when it
figure
comes
that out
to-
during the movie. I'm like,
yeah.
how does this cop know who Nick Fury is? He's supposed to be part of the super secret Shield outfit, but yeah, I guess you're right. Okay. Well, any final thoughts? I mean, we've been going for an hour and 10 minutes. We'll start wrapping it up. I'll start
No,
or no. Sam, you go ahead and
no,
start.
I'm just hoping that we like he's not truly alone in the future. He's part of this overarching universe, and would it be the Fantastic Four, Stephen Strange, Happy Hogan, whoever it may be, MJ and Ned? I just want them to, I mean, I almost feel like, sorry, I almost feel like this is like a grab by Sony in a way, like he's ours. That's why they did this move about him not remembering anyone, so that they can take him the way they want to take him. And it's very bittersweet. I understand it, but at the same time, I'm not 100% on board with it. I like him. I like all our superheroes knowing each other. I know Peter goes for a lot of tragedy, but this is ridiculous. He's part of this universe.
I feel like it'll be very quickly resolved that in the next Avengers movie when Spider-Man shows up, because he will.
Yeah, he's part of the Avengers. Yeah, we need him in Avengers for fuck's sake. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like when he shows up, I feel like it's going to be quickly resolved that he tells them who he is. I don't think that this is going to be like a like a long going thing where he's trying to hide his identity from the Avengers. I think he's going to show up and they're going to be like, "Oh, who are you?" And then he's going to take his mask. Like, "I'm Peter Parker. Blah blah blah. I'm Spider-Man. Listen, Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange is going to be there. So like he did a spell and he made me forget, and that's what happened. And then Doctor Strange is going to be like, that tracks, and then that's going to be it, and then we move on.
Sorry, just to add as well, because Endgame was now 2 years ago, yeah, and it'll be almost 3 years ago. From next month, like we should start now building towards the next Avengers movie, I believe. And
But keep in mind also, the MCU has only been rolling for the past year, like because of COVID and everything.
No, I agree, but we need to start setting up now. Like, we only get a couple of films a year. We need to start setting up for the next one, in my opinion, from next year. And how long can we wait? Because before we know it will be 5 years. That's too long. Avengers movie should be like 4 years apart, in my opinion.
Well, that's why I'm saying COVID kind of knocked everything back. I think they have already started building. I mean, you already saw Kang, so I mean, I don't know if he's the next.
I'm sorry. So
I just think. Go ahead, boss man.
I was going to say, and also, but the thing is that because they've introduced the multiverse as now a thing, we're gonna, as I said, we're gonna get, I think, more maybe more versions of superheroes. So maybe we get more. I mean, this probably won't happen because but we might get both versions of the Hulk. So we might get Edit Banner and.
Well, apparently Charlie Cox is going to be
back.
Apparently, I'm not sure about Edward Norton, but it'll be interesting to see him in the multiverse. But apparently, we're going to get Matt Murdock will be in She-Hulk.
Yeah, that's
allegedly.
what I've heard as well. It's not confirmed, but I've heard that as well.
I just want to say thank you very much, Spoda, for subscribing to us. We like everybody to join our little family here, so very much appreciated. And Merry Christmas to you, my friend.
Okay, so yes, I agree. Thank you for joining us, Spooter. but yeah, I mean, so we can say that for another podcast. I was gonna say we can talk about the Doctor Strange trailer, but we're going too long anyway.
No. Let's talk about it. It's all part of this, man. Like
Okay,
you know, like I want to. I'm glad you brought it, but I did want to bring it up.
I shouldn't have brought
Um,
it up.
no, because like when like when he was dealing with the fucking magic and shit, it went straight into multiverse of madness for him. He didn't just like do the spell and that's it. Wipe his hand and he goes back to the rectum sanctorum or whatever the fuck it's called. You know,
Rectum Sanctorum. Oh
yes,
God.
yeah, that's my name for it now. But like he went straight into the multiverse of madness bullshit, didn't he?
No,
Mm.
I think the multiverse of madness is just going to be kind of what's been building up between Loki and What If and all that other stuff. I think that the
And
Spider-Man
this,
I think that the Spider-Man stuff is a part of it, but not like a because of it. So I think that this whole thing is going to be happening um because so Doctor Strange is not breaking time, but like what's happening on Loki, what happens on Wanda, in WandaVision, what happens in what's it called? Not WandaVision. Uh What If, like all that stuff happening, like I'm pretty sure that's what we've been building to. Because in that trailer, we did see a dark Doctor Strange. I don't think it's the same Doctor Strange that we saw in What If. It's the Supreme Strange or
uh-huh.
Strange Supreme, whatever they call him. I don't think that's the same one. I think that this is also going to be conducive of the character Nightmare, who is a Doctor Strange villain, um, in the comic books, and they have said that he is going to be the villain of this one, but that was back when what's his face, Derek, what was his name, Scott Derrickson was directing it, and he wanted to do a more of a horror angle,
Mm.
and with him parting, it's like, you got so many friggin' people coming into this movie. It's like, I mean, you've got rumors of Deadpool in this movie, X-Men in this movie, different versions of Tony Stark,
Well,
Iron Man, and stuff like that. Like, so this is, I mean, this is going to be a freaking
I,
bonkers movie.
I'm not sure if I think people's theories are going to go out of control, and I'm glad. And thank you very much, Marcus. Just was part of my No Way Home, and I think they confirmed a few theories of mine. Please let us know what they are. But I do feel regarding the trailer, like I had all these ideas that the multiverse of madness was going to open a doorway to all of these other characters in the MCU, like Fantastic Four and the X-Men and God knows what else. I'm not so sure now. Um, After seeing that trailer, I don't know what it's going to be about. It might not necessarily be that. I think people theories for the multiverse of madness might get a bit disappointed with it initially, regarding what they expect from it. But I do believe Wanda is definitely going to be the villain of that movie. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go with that as well. It's really good to see Elizabeth Olsen back because she's fantastic in this universe, and I can't wait to see where they go with that in the future.
Yep, I agree. I'm very excited for Doctor Strange too. I think it's going to be a change of tone, and I think that no, I think this is going to be like Captain America: Civil War. Like, I feel like that this movie is going to be chocked full of stuff, and people and characters that we aren't expecting, and I think that it is going to be it is like the way, even though it was very much a Captain America movie, Captain America: Civil War also was big for the MCU. It was Avengers 2.5. I really feel like that if they play this the right way, that this Doctor Strange movie is going to change the MCU in big ways, even more than Spider-Man did in No Way
well,
Home here. I really feel
well,
like we're
the
going to
thing
be.
is that the person directing this film is Sam Raimi, who directed the first three Spider-Man films. So
Mhm.
it could be interesting in that way because you could bring that horror element that's got Derrickson wanted to bring in.
Well,
So
Sam
yeah,
Raimi is a
so
horror director.
yeah, um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
know, but I just no, I'm not sure. I don't. I just after watching that trailer, I just don't know anymore now. Like it was good to see the trailer, but it never. I wasn't blown away by it. I don't know about you guys.
I mean, I think they just gave us enough to like. It's like the Avengers trailer at the end of Captain America: The First Avenger. Remember that back in 2011? Like our first glimpse of Avengers was just like this 60-second clip at the end of it, and yeah, I feel like I feel like it's just going to be a good, like that's just kind of to wet our whistle and for us to want more. I don't even know if that's really a trailer. I just think that's like a sneak peek, at the movie coming out. So I don't know. All right, so boys and Santa Claus, do we have anything else to comment on? I mean, Spider-Man: No Way Home.
I want to give it a rating because I
was
haven't
just
rated the
gonna say
movie.
that. Do we want to give it a rating?
Oh yes, it's going to be 10 out of 10. For me. Now, don't get me wrong, I did have my gripes with it, but to pull off something like this, the way they did, using previous actors from previous movies, incarnations of Spider-Man, and to make it work for most of the part, you have to applaud it and you have to admire it. And for that reason, to give it a mark below 10, for me, would be an injustice because overall, this was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. If it was just a run of the mill, for instance, Spider-Man Far From Home, I gave that an 8 out of 10. It was good. It was very, very good, but it wasn't as ambitious as this movie. This movie was unbelievably ambitious. It's not simple. To have this many characters and to give them all a bit of their moments and stuff was amazing. And we had the comedy, and we had the tragedy. It was I don't give tens often. I really don't. But I have to give it on this occasion because it worked more than it didn't for what they pulled off. So 10 out of 10 for me.
Boss man?
I'll 10. But I won't go higher. But I can't. I want to do that, the Spinal Tap thing. I want to do 11. I want to do all the way up to 11. Right. So yeah. So because as I said, like I mean, and this is not hyperbole. This is not what's the word, recency bias or any of that crap. It's literally this was the best MCU movie I've seen, which is high praise, considering that I love Civil War so much and I love Flaming Winter Soldier and I love Endgame. This is better than that of those three.
What? Okay.
I disagree there. I
And
disagree there.
as I said, and I tell you why, because it takes the continuity and he does something good with it. That stuff people bitched about and did something good with it. And how many films will take something that people moaned about and turn it on the head and actually make good stories out of it?
Endgame was one big movie full of fan service and payoffs.
This was better than Endgame.
Huh?
This was
Civil
better than
War was
Endgame.
fantastic.
No, we can debate that. I'll set up another podcast where it's Endgame versus No Way Home, and we can debate that all the live.
No, we do a podcast of the best of the MCU so far.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever. I don't. Yeah. Okay. So, with all that being said, everybody, thank you very much for watching.
What's your score?
What about yours?
I'm going to give my rating in 1 second. With all that being said, thank you very much for joining us. This has been a crazy road building up to No Way Home. We've been doing this like every week for the past like 5 weeks with the talks and stuff like that. So I would love to thank Vance for that. If you guys do get a chance, check out our podcast later on tonight. I'll be doing this same type of podcast, but over on his channel, No Budget Productions, and Filk Productions, if you're looking it up. But we are NerdTube. We are the greatest YouTube channel you've never heard. Well, you've kind of maybe sort of heard of at this point. There's a multiverse out there for us to explore, and we will catch you guys in the next one. My rating for No Way Home is 9 out of 10 because Tobey Maguire didn't fucking die.